Hi everyone, good evening. So my talk will be about the 4 months guide to building things with AWS. So I'm going to talk about some cost-effective cloud management solutions for students, for you, for people like you na wala pang salary, not earning anything with your job using the cloud. For now. So a bit of background muna about myself. Hi, I'm Arnel Sarmiento. You can call me Nel. I'm a self-taught software engineer, with about 3 years of experience in the industry. I'm also a Python backend engineer at Elementa. We're a Sydney-based fintech company that makes tools for financial advisors done. I'm also the current and signing out president ng Sparks. And I'm the current community lead of Durian Pie, Davao's Python user group. Also, I am a co-lead ng PWA Pilipinas Davao, and I have the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner na certification. So yun, um, that's a bit of background ko na ginagawa ko sa life ko. When I'm not coding, when I'm not at school, ito siya. I'm managing these communities. Okay, so first off, raise of hands guys. Raise of hands sa mga merong AWS account right now. Okay, I see a few here. How about people na may AWS accounts with an attached na credit card or debit card? Ayun, medyo marami din. So, meron pa na dito wala pang AWS accounts, no? Yes, okay lang. How about people who have resources deployed to their AWS accounts? So, yun, may dalawa tayo. Okay, ito sila mga safe to. Sige. So, I want to share muna mga litratong masakit sa damdamin. Yan. Okay, so first picture, ito. This is an AWS invoice na may $19,000 na amount. Okay, that's picture number one. Picture number two, ito naman, Cost Explorer na dashboard na may 846,000 na bill. Okay. Ito naman sa company ko to, meron kami currently for this month $742 na AWS bill. Okay. So, what's in common sa mga pictures na ito? Money, cost, no? Cost, the high value na AWS bills. Now, I want everyone here to stand up. Stand up, guys. Sandali lang to. Okay. I want you all to stand up and look at the person beside you. Okay lang. Look at the person beside you. Look into their eyes. No? Okay. Okay na, meron kayong person, may ka-pair. Okay na. So, repeat after me. Tell this to the person on your right. This can happen to you. Ayun. Yun. This can happen to you, no? Okay na guys, you can now sit down. So, yun nga, no? This can happen to you. That's the recurrent theme when it comes to learning cloud, especially for beginners. It's the infamous surprise bill, di ba? So, I experienced this firsthand myself, no? When I forgot to deallocate some resources sa cloud. Kalimutan ko, nandiyan pa pala yan. So, after a month, yun pala, meron pala bill. So, I'm going to share my experiences doon. I'm going to share my learnings. This is my way to give back to the community and eventually allow you guys to not make the same mistakes I did. Okay? So, for this talk, my agenda would be, number one, show them the AWS bills. Yun yung kanina. Number two, to understand AWS pricing. That's a must-have before you use any type of AWS services. Dapat alam niyo kung anong pricing model niya. Yan. And next, I'm gonna show you some hands-on na mga AWS learnings that hindi actually ginamit yung AWS account mo, but allows you to learn for a very fraction of the cost ng actual deployment. And lastly, I'm gonna show you some cost management best practices. Yung mga services mismo ng AWS that allows you to cut cost and manage your billing. Okay, so review lang dun sa sinabi ni Neil kanina. These are the 6 benefits of AWS Cloud na specified sa cost and billing. So yun nga, trade fixed expenses for variable expenses. Sabi ni Neil, okay na siya. Benefits from massive economies of scale. Yun, That's the natural thing about supply and demand, no? Since ang AWS, sobrang maraming mga resources, maraming mga servers on their data centers, that will reflect on the cost for us users. So the higher the amount of servers na meron dyan, the higher the supply, the less the cost. Okay? And lastly, yung stop guessing for capacity. Yun siya. So, yun nga, AWS allows us to adjust resources allocation based on the actual demand. So, here's a chart no, ng parang on-premise na situation. So, on-premise, parang tayo pa bibili ng mga servers natin, and it depends pa kung kailan yan darating. And when it does come around, di tayo sure if it can handle the traffic na meron tayo. Diba? So if ever man there's a surge of traffic, you have to wait for another delivery to come along for another set of data center. Okay? In the cloud naman, yun nga, you can actually right size our resources, allocate them as our traffic comes in. Yan ang benefits of the AWS cloud. And to best utilize the benefits, without shooting ourselves in the foot, diba, is to understand AWS pricing. So ito, AWS pricing. Nasa documentation lang yan lahat, you can freely look into it. Pero need talaga yan malaman. It's not a nice to have, it's a need. Before you actually use AWS, learn the pricing model. Kasi nga, this can happen to you. Okay, so ito yung mga pricing models. So each service has a specific pricing model that you absolutely must know, di ba? Before using the service. So meron din tayong mga pricing options for that. For example, sa EC2, we have things like pay-as-you-go, mga reserved instance plans, and mga spot instances, and of course, yung free tier. Pay-as-you-go is yung model wherein it allows you to pay only for what you use as you use it. Ganun siya, parang on-demand lang. Gusto ko ito gamitin, I'm gonna pay for it. When I stop using it, I stop paying. Ganun lang siya. For reserved instances naman, you reserve a length of time na gamitin mo yung resources na yun. Like, for example, you reserve 6 months, no? Na paggamit ng isang EC2 instance. So, the result of that is lower ang prices mo as compared to gagamitin mo siya on demand sa 6 months na yun. Yun naman, there's also the spot instances. These are the spare compute na binibigay ng AWS sa'yo that's much cheaper compared to... Pero ang downside lang nito is yung downtime. Yun siya. That is very low availability as compared to on-demand pricing. And of course, yung free tier. Pero yun nga, the question is talaga, do you really need to pay to learn sa AWS? Well, there are mga certain options. Yun na-mention ni Neil kanina. There's always AWS Skill Builder. Yun allows you to have access to free resources, yung mga labs na ganyan. There's also yung na-mention ni Neil na AWS Educate. Now, the difference with this and yung Skill Builder talaga is that AWS Educate is more accustomed, tailored for beginners. Yun. Yung mga cloud foundations pa lang, yun ang focus ng AWS Educate. And there's also AWS Academy. Ito iba siya, this is like a program na parang partnership with your school, your university. Tapos yun na parang best way to integrate AWS with the academy. So if ever man, when the time comes, shout out Neil, baka pwede naman sa UP Mint. Baka lang. Okay? So there's also ito, yung mga paid na mga courses. Ito, merong skill builder, merong mga AWS builder lab sa AWS skill building. Meron siyang, part siya ng subscription sa skill building actually, but it's really good. Like, you can really, have parang simulation ng AWS na console, but without paying for the actual resources na deploy mo. So, this is really good. If you really want to hands-on experience, it's probably a good idea to invest on that subscription. And of course, yung Tutorials Dojo. Meron din itong siyang mga hands-on labs if nakatry ka na. And yun, it's really just like the actual AWS console. There's also the Cloud Quest. Yan siya, parang isa siyang gamified na way to learn the AWS Cloud. So yun nga, meron tayong avatar, yun siya. And then, We can learn mga badges for cloud practitioner. If you want to learn how the cloud foundational certification works in a gamified way, like kunyari low attention span mo, this is the way to go probably. And of course, there's the free tier. Yan. So itong free tier, this is offered for almost all of the AWS services. Pero depende kung anong type of free tier meron siya. For EC2 instance, so, for example, meron tayong 715 hours na free. Sa S3, meron 5 GB na free. Sa RDS, may 750 hours. Pero don't let these things deceive you kasi they can run out in different ways, like ranging from days na continuous na paggamit mo, wala na siya, ubos na yung free credits mo, or from weeks to months. Depende talaga sa paggamit. No? Ganun siya. But yun nga, if you're starting to learn, it is the best way. So itong strategy ko dati sa pag-utilize ng free tier. So yun nga, you create your new AWS account. Meron kang free tier. You start working on AWS, deploy your resources on it. And then you consume the free tier. Yun nga, after you consume all the free tier, i-delete mo yung mga resources mo, and then wala ka ng free tier. You're all done. Now, what you do after that is you create a new account na may bagong free tier. Especially if you're learning, okay lang yan masyado. And that's really possible na in a way na hindi ka gawa ng new email every time. Kasi di ba, gagawa ka ng new email. You can accomplish that with plus addressing. Who's familiar here with plus addressing sa mga emails natin? Wala? Okay, so yun, I'm gonna explain plus addressing lang. So this is a way for us to essentially create a new version ng account natin, ng isang email natin. So what we're gonna do is that, for example lang, original na email account natin is meganb@example.com. Yun siya. If we add plus like another string to it, it will be treated as a new account, as a new email ng AWS. However, yung mga emails na ma-receive mo supposedly sa account na to, ma-receive siya sa original email mo, yung meganb@example.com. So you can imagine the potential, no? Na, for example, if you're learning, tapos parang paubos na mga AWS credits mo, gawa ka na ng other email with plus addressing, gawa ka ng bagong AWS account, and then all together, bago kang free tier. Ganun siya. So yun, yung mga techniques na yan. Pero if ayun yung gawin, like grabe masyadong overhead, ano yun, Arnel? You can always apply for rapid ramp credits. Yan. Offered siya ng AWS. You can apply for that. This is available for all new accounts. Tapos bibigyan ka nila ng $300 na credits. That's $300 for 6 months. So dapat by 6 months, ma-fully utilize yun yung mga credits na yun and maximize your learning. So kung gamitin niyo yan, make sure na gamitin niyo yan for the best purposes. Like learn ka na ng mga Kubernetes, for example, mga SageMakers, all of the expensive na mga services. So yun. And when you're gonna do that, when you're gonna build on the actual AWS cloud, make sure to study infrastructure as code. Yun. Infrastructure as code really allows you to like deploy provision resources and deprovision that on demand. Like infrastructure as code is like isang piece of code lang, isang file that specifies your resources. For example, gusto ko mag-deploy ng isang EC2 instance. Just write it in that piece of YAML file or like Python, for example, or whatever you use, and then run a command on your CLI. And through that, makonect na siya sa AWS account mo and then ma-deploy siya. We're just after that. And then if ayaw mo nyo na, meron kayong command din that corresponds to that to remove that resource. Ganun lang. So yun, if you're gonna try to learn to deploy to the cloud, this is one of the ways to go. Pero yun nga, what if I don't want to use these resources? I'm ready to deploy to the cloud. Like, bring it on, bro. Ito na yun. So one of the biggest fallbacks ng mga tao when they start to build on their actual AWS cloud is ignoring the AWS cost management and billing consoles. Yun siya. So this is one of the services ng AWS na free for everyone. No? So this is the console ng billing and cost management. Yun siya. Marami siyang services which we're gonna break down in a bit. But yun nga, what's gonna happen once ginawa mong AWS account mo? Yun nga nun. When you first to create your account, most chances are, parang diretso ka na, no? Diretso ka na gawa ng ano, na mga resources mo, deploy ka na, experiment with the console. Pero the most important thing talaga is to set budgets. Yan, that is the very first thing that you should do when you create your AWS account. Yan siya. Before you do anything in the cloud, AWS Budget. So AWS Budget is a service that allows us to set alarms. No? Ang AWS Budget, meron siya mga AWS Budget Alarms that allows us to declare like a threshold kung saan pwede sa atin tong fixed amount na to. And then if ever nag-exceed na sa threshold na yon, i-email tayo or do some awesome things with it pa. So yun, ito siya, example to, AWS Budget sends us an SNS topic that can send us an email, papunta sa ating emails, or a set of emails no, that allows us, uy, medyo malito parang ang budget lang natin is ₱0 or like $10 for example. Nag-exceed tayo. So in that way, automatically tayo ma-alert and then do the right thing, mag-deprovision, mag-right size ng any resources na meron tayo. But you can also, ito pala. This is a screenshot ng email sa Sparks ng mga ng alert namin. So yun, meron kaming ginawa na alert na zero spend budget. So if na-exceed ng $0 ang aming cloud cost, email kami yan. So nandiyan na yan every month. But you can also do some awesome things, no? So ito siya, this is a piece of architecture diagram wherein, yun nga, meron tayong budget alarm. So that, aside from sending us an email, meron din tayong naka-attach na Lambda na mag-trigger ng service catalog. So a service catalog lets you centrally manage your cloud resources in the form of CloudFormation templates. So in this architecture, mangyari dito, if our cloud cost exceeds a certain threshold, ang gagawin niya is right-size the resources. So i-deploy niya yung CloudFormation template na to like deploy mga EC2 instances na may smaller na sizes, like mga T2 na instances for example, just to mitigate the cost na ma-spend natin. Ganun siya. So that's one of the awesome things na magawa natin sa mga triggers ng AWS budgets. Another awesome feature ng AWS budgets, AWS Cost Management Console is ito, AWS Cost and Usage Report. So ito siya, it's more fine-grained na information ibigay sa atin ng AWS. So if you subscribe to like cost and usage reports, you can get like a CSV file like this. And siya, very detailed masyado, no? So nandyan na yung mga services, yung mga resources na nag-correspond sa typical na usage amount na yan. Nandiyan yung time, kung saan siya nangyari, nag-incur, nandiyan yung region. Nandiyan yung lahat na data. And with that data, you can do some analytics with it. So, pwede mo siya upload sa isang S3 bucket and then analyze with Amazon Athena, which is an S3 na querying service for S3. Which is a SQL querying service for S3. Yun siya. And you can also do something like this. Pwede natin ilagay sa isang S3 bucket, then do some ETL workloads with AWS Glue, and then ilagay sa Amazon Forecast to like potentially forecast our budget. Pero yun nga, forecasting is also built right out of the box with AWS Cost Explorer. So itong AWS Cost Explorer allows us to visualize our cloud cost in a more intuitive way. So it provides us detailed insights and trends and predictions sa mga cloud costs natin in the current months, the past months, or in the near future. So ito siya. This is the dashboard para sa AWS Cost Explorer. And there's also AWS Trusted Advisor. That's a very important service that allows us to offer real-time guidance to help you optimize your cloud environments. So it provides cost-saving recommendations by identifying underutilized resources. So once it finds out some like for example, EC2 instance na underutilized, we can effectively do the right option para doon. We can right-size it, decrease the storage capacity or whatever with Trusted Advisor. And one more tip is we always mention kanina to right-size your resources. But what does that really mean? So, for example, sa EC2 instance, meron tayong different na mga instance types, right? And those instance types have varying na mga RAM, mga specs, and of course, prices. And it's very important to choose the right instance type for your needs. For example, meron mga general purpose, whether mga ARM-based or x64, may mga compute optimized or yung mga memory optimized na mga workloads, especially for mga data engineering task, mga RAM intensive na mga database, no? And there's also yung mga accelerated computing. That's very important for things like video games, especially yung mga machine learning na mga training. And then there's storage optimized for your database, syempre. So yun, right sizing essentially means is to adjust the type and size of your cloud resources to match your workload requirements. So ito siya, this is a diagram. Ito siya, overutilization, grabe ang traffic natin as compared to our instance size. So yun nga, error talaga. So maging luto yan eventually. And poor performance for our users. And yun nga, if we do, there's also another side to that, which is overutilization, which is grabe kalaki ang ating resource types, resource size, na it doesn't match our actual na utilization, which is a waste lang of money and time. And aside from that, to help us with right sizing, there's always AWS Compute Optimizer. So this is a service that allows us to essentially use machine learning, no, to recommend us ano ba yung tamang instance size sa atin, ano ba yung tamang size ng ating resources for us, especially for our use case. Another thing for us to use to do in our resources para ma-minimize ang cost is to use auto-scaling. So auto-scaling is essentially, it automatically adjusts. This is a resource that has an auto-scaling group with dalawang EC2 instance. Yan siya. So this auto-scaling group allows us to essentially automatically horizontally scale our resources. So for example, if low ang utilization natin, dalawa lang ang ating EC2 instance, but if ever man na our usage spikes, daragdagan niya yan. So it can have 3 or 4 or much more na EC2 instances to meet our requirements. But if you don't want the overhead of that kind of workloads, there's always serverless architecture. So yan, serverless architecture is something that everyone here must really explore because it's a game changer and it will really define cloud computing in the next few years. So yan, the additional tips lang din is to review regularly yung AWS pricing because pricing always changes, no? May mga updates ang AWS and make sure to get updated on that when the time comes. And there's also secure your AWS cloud. So you have your AWS account, no? Meron kang ginawa na IAM user. Tapos meron yung credentials that has access to your CLI and the rest of your resources. It's very important for you to secure those credentials. Kasi kung hindi, wala. Magamit yun ng isang person with malicious intent, maglagay ng isang Bitcoin mining na program sa isang EC2 instance na directed sa account mo, and wala na. You end up paying for those resources. And yun nga, always review and delete unused resources. Remember what I mentioned earlier na yun nga, the mistakes I made sa cloud cost. That's one mistake I made. So, same kay Neil, meron akong EC2 instance and RDS na instance, nakalimutan i-off. Yun siya. So, I ended up incurring around 5K pesos to pay for those instances. So, yun, it's very important for you to review the resources that you have allocated. And if ayaw nyo gamitin, hindi nyo gamitin, kindly review them and remove them accordingly. But when all else fails, no, there's always AWS Support. Yun siya. So what I did on sa aking experience is that I called up AWS Support. And AWS has one of the best na customer support out there. So what they can do is that, especially if you're a beginner, pwede ka na bigyan ng refund. Especially if you made a mistake. At that time, I made a mistake naman. So they freely gave me my 5K pesos back. So that's really cool. And when you're in that kind of situation, gawin niyo yan. Okay, so this is an issue lately, no? Ito, very lately lang to nangyari. Ito si Jinja Jiang, di ba? So, meron siyang isang Vercel na bill. And as mentioned earlier ni Neil, no, Vercel just runs on top of AWS. That's essentially the only way for Vercel to make money is that they charge more than AWS. That's a fact. And yun, Jinja Zhang apparently used Vercel sa kanyang application and ended up having a bill of $96,000. So, no one wants that. But ang problema kay Jinja Zhang, if you look into the issue further, na-alert na siya. Na-alert na siya. Ilang beses na siya na-email ng Vercel, ito yung bill mo, paki-allocate, paki-ayos please kasi medyo concerning to. Ilang beses na nangyari but she ignored it. And when the time na na-notice niya itong bill na to, yun, nag-tweet siya about it. Which is too late na. Vercel cannot refund this because it comes from traffic talaga from actual users. So that's a very important thing for you know to be responsible in your cloud costs. So if there's one thing that you can take away from this talk, make sure to monitor usage, set alerts, avoid surprises. Yan siya. So, yun nga, that's pretty much my talk. And but the thing is, cloud is not all about breaking the bank. Cloud is not all of that. So while this talk is more on how to avoid burning money in the cloud, the next talk naman is how you make money with the cloud. So yun, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Here's my LinkedIn profile lang, and thank you.